Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Um, thank you for watching my videos, and thank you for subscribing as well and liking my videos. Those who haven't subscribed to me yet or liked my videos, please subscribe to me. I'll be very grateful, and like my videos as well. I'll be very grateful, and you can follow me. I'm on Twitter as well at Mancini, which is Mancynie. Today I'm going to talk about human rights and the rule of law. This is going to be general, really. It's going to be general, but then at a certain point, I'm going to direct it to Uganda as the case study. Um, what is human rights? I'll answer this according to the UN definition. The UN states that human rights are rights that are inherent to all human beings, regardless of their race, their sex, their nationality, their ethnicity, their language, religion, or any other status. And the United Nations goes ahead to say that human rights include the right to life and liberty, the freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. And everyone is entitled to these rights without discrimination. So, like I said, I'll be talking about human rights using Uganda as a case study and the rule of law as well. Let's look at what is the rule of law. Um, the rule of law in its most basic form, you would say is the principle that no one is above the law. It's as simple as that. Nobody is above the law. So it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're the governor, whether you're the president, whether you're the judge, whether you're the policeman, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a doctor, it doesn't matter who you are. It cuts across, you know. Nobody is above the law for as long as you have, you have done something that is not in line with the law, or you've broken the law, then you need to be answerable. You need to account for it. Um, the principle is basically, intended to be a safeguard, against arbitrary governance, whether by a totalitarian leader or by mob rule. The rule of law is hostile both to dictatorship and to anarchy. So I like what the Law Society in Uganda is currently doing. They've currently come up and they're running a program which is countrywide. They're going around the country in different schools, different institutions, putting up different debate sessions and talks around, to educate people more about the rule of law, and to me, I look at it like it's empowerment. They're empowering people, by sensitizing them. They're actually empowering the people, and making them know and realize that, what, even that LC chairperson who is in charge of our community, if he has done something wrong, then he ought to be accountable for it, and he shouldn't be let off and go scot-free. Even the policeman who is there to keep law and order, if he breaks the law, or if he does something that is contrary to what he's supposed to be doing, then he needs to be accountable. He needs to face the law, and the law needs to take its course, on him. So basically, no one is above the law, regardless of who you are. Going back to human rights, in Uganda recently, the Human Rights Watch carried out a report, in 2017. And I want to sort of like dwell more on the abuse, really, abuse of citizens, you know, abuse and the torture, on citizens. Um, they found, let's do it this way. There is the report they came up with did cover a number of issues. One was to do with the freedom of assembly. The other was to do with the freedom of expression and media. This reminds me of, just a week or a week and a half ago, where the Uganda Communications Commission, yeah, UCC, they are the ones in charge of all the media houses, and they control all the media houses and what is allowed and not allowed to be aired out on television or radio, and they're in charge. If you go against the sorry, the rules that they have put in place, then they have the right to close your radio station or your television station. So because there was so much protest, to do with I know this article keeps coming up, because it's the thing that's currently bringing a lot of tension in the country, Uganda, which is ridiculous. It's just one small article. It's not small, it's not as small as I'm trying to make it sound, but it's something that shouldn't really, take away the peace, the sanity of everybody. But what is it doing? It's actually making people go crazy. And it's very hard now for every one of us to talk about Uganda and not have Article 102B come and jump in our conversation somehow. To me, I must say honestly, I'm getting sick and tired of it. Even just listening to it, I'm just tired of listening to it. But anyway, with that said, because of the same article and because of what the media houses aired out, during that time when there was a lot of fracas, when the members of parliament fought in parliament because um, of one issue or another, when they were asked to leave um, the August House, and they did not take heed when the Speaker of Parliament asked them to leave, and then the military went into Parliament, invaded Parliament, and dragged out the members of Parliament of the opposition, and tortured them, harassed them, beat them up, and all kinds of crazy things. But anyway, so because the media houses, you know, um, were able to show the things that had happened the day before, which was also sort of like a fight between the two opposition sides, the two opposing sides, the opposition side and the ruling government side, the ruling party. So they were ordered not to air out any live, um, they shouldn't report any live happenings, any live events, because apparently their main reason was if they um, air out any live events and things happen to get out of hand, then it would easily incite the members of public, and who knows what would happen. Maybe people would would come and join in the protest, would come and join in the fights, would come and join in the in the fracas. But anyway, so they put restrictions on the media houses and told them they should not um, make any more live reporting, which which is so absurd because we are in a we are in a changing world. We are in a world of technology. We are in a world where news is no longer like it used to be, where you have to wait at about 10 p.m. before you can find out everything that's been happening from, during the day, since you woke up and whatever. Nowadays, as and when everything is happening, you get to find out, on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer. You get to find out immediately, and you're watching everything the way it unfolds. So for them to try and fight the technological, the technology era that we are in right now, or the digital era that we are in right now, that they as well are trying to upgrade to, then I think it's being contradictory to yourself, you know. So anyway, in the past they've closed down, you know, in the past they've closed down like newspaper offices, tabloids that try and report um, things here and there, about probably the government, or about um, things that are not going the right way, things that are probably inciting the public, and then they've closed down the publishing houses. Anyway, thank God none of the media houses were closed at this point, even though they put that restriction. And they ended up, having to lift the ban, because a number of people, a group of people, wrote to them and said, no, you're infringing on the rights of the media houses. You're infringing on their freedom of expression, and media, so they had to lift the ban. But anyway, the Human Rights Watch came up with a report as well, to do with the freedom of expression and media. And they said, um, whatever they reported was mainly in regard to what happened in 2016 during the elections, because we did have presidential elections in 2016. And the same thing happened, where they tried to bring up the same restrictions, to ask the media houses not to report, the ongoing election, updates, the protests that people were making, you know. But then after 5 days, about 5 days, they had to lift the ban again. Anyway, to do with extrajudicial killings and absence of accountability, this is very high in Uganda. So many people, get tortured and killed, and no one ever, accounts for it. They'll always keep saying, oh, we'll investigate, and nothing ever happens. So if I can read to you just a bit of what the Human Rights Watch, stated in their report. Security forces continue to use excessive force while policing demonstrations and conducting other law enforcement operations. Now, mark that, other law enforcement operations. That's what I want to come back and dwell on. Between February and April, intercommunal fighting, prompted in part by local elections in Rwenzori region, western Uganda, led to the deaths of at least 30 people. Human Rights Watch investigations into subsequent law enforcement operations concluded that the police and the army killed at least 13 people during alleged arrest attempts. Multiple witnesses said victims were unnamed when killed. There had been no investigations at the time of writing. So, two issues here. Other enforcement operations, other law enforcement operations, and no investigations carried out. Brings me to a body in Uganda, in Kampala, in the city, called KCCA. Let me just see the full meaning right now, because by the time I left Uganda, it was just Kampala City Council. Okay, yeah. It's KCCA, which means Kampala Capital City Authority. Now, this is a body that is in charge of, it's responsible for all the operations of the capital city. So basically, all traders, all markets, all all properties, buildings, which are properties anyway. Everything basically that is to do with the city, you know, all operations, taxes, that are to be paid, like taxes to operate. If you want to operate a shop, or if you want to operate a restaurant, if you want to operate any kind of business, they are the ones that you have to pay taxes to. Market vendors, shop sellers, hawkers, and all other groups of people, taxi operations, and all other kinds of people. They all are under the Kampala Capital City Authority. So this group of people, have for a period of time now, when they brought in the new director, who is called Miss Jennifer Musisi, they decided to do away with people that were selling items on the streets. And looking back, there used to be a very high number of, Ugandans that would make a living out of, selling items along the streets, or hawking them along the roads, while you're driving through the traffic, people are selling items to you in the car. They've gotten rid of all those people. They've gotten rid of all the people selling items on the verandas of the streets, around the taxi park. There's a huge taxi park in the city. When I say taxis, in the UK here, you'd call them vans, probably, because taxi in the UK means a cab, which in Uganda, a cab is a special hire. So anyway, it's just the lingo, but I hope you get what I mean anyway. So with the level of poverty in Uganda, you would imagine that they would have less stricter rules, just to enable everybody to try and make a living, to provide for, their little ones, or their siblings, or whoever else they are taking care of, because coming from the kind of society that I come from, many people, look after their parents, look after their relatives, children, and any other group of people, that they owe a duty of care to. But no, the rules have become tighter. No one can hawk anything on the streets. Nobody can sell on the verandas. Nobody can sell around the taxi parks. You either get money and hire a shop and do all your operations in the shop, or you get out of the city and not do anything at all, which to me, in my own view, in my own opinion, is wrong. Not everybody can afford a shop. With the high level of unemployment as well, and like I said, the poverty, people's incomes are very low. People lack even capital to start up businesses, even ordinary businesses, But here come these people, even when somebody is just trying to, to make a living, they're barely even making the living. They're scraping, I would say, they're scraping through life, they're still not given an opportunity. So very recently, there are two incidences that I know, three of them that I really want to, talk about. One, um, there's a lady that was selling bananas on the street, because they usually sell them in, like, a huge basket, and they'll, do their bananas and sell them on the street to whoever, so they happened to spot her, because they drive around the city trying to, to spot these kinds of people trying to sell around or hawk around. So they were driving through and they spotted this woman. So she saw them as well coming towards her, and what did she do? She began to run and left her goods behind. Now, you've taken, you've got hold of the goods. Take the goods and leave the poor woman. Maybe she will have learned a lesson and will go back, think about it, and maybe not come back again. Or if she comes back again, she'll be more careful this time and do maybe things according to what you expect her to do. No, they took her goods, put them in the car, and then they started chasing her. And what happened? She fell in a manhole. And what happened? She passed away. She died. Was she ever accounted for? Were there any investigations that were done? Were there any arrests that were made? No. That is typical of Uganda. The second incident is another lady who, as well, was caught trying to sell things on the street. They seized her goods, and then she had a child. She had a baby. That baby was barely, I'll say, maybe 6 months or 7 months, probably. Maybe 7 to 8 months. And when she got arrested, she has a child, you know, at least honor the rights of the child, honor the presence of the child, because when it comes to human rights issues, a child's rights will always override a parent's rights. So if you think you don't want to treat the parent right, remember there's a child. Treat the both of them in a much um in a much lesser um what's the word treat treat the both of them in a much lesser, painful way, in a much lesser harsh way, you know just for the sake of the child. And then if you find where to put the child, of which I don't think Uganda has any social services, you know that's the whole reason why women end up going to prisons with their children, which is not the best environment for the child. It's not the best way that you would want to see a child live as well, you know. But because we don't have any laws, probably, that um, help protect, you know, the children, as far as, you know, protecting them from having to go to prison with their parents. And then these things keep happening every now and again. No social services to, to no local authorities to come and jump in and, cater for these children while their parents go and serve their time in prison. So anyway, they ignored the presence of the child, and what did they do? They lifted the woman from up and just shoved her into the car. It's I would call it a pickup car, with the back open, and then there's metallic seats, and there's a seat, and there's space under. So that's where they shoved her through with the child. And this child hit its head on the metallic seats. And nobody cared. The child was crying. There was a man standing along that kept shouting, mind the child, mind the child. Nobody would listen to the man. They kept shoving the woman and the child. The child was crying. It was such a painful and very emotional, you know, um, thing to watch. Did anybody do anything about that? No. And I bet the woman is still in prison, languishing, with no representation, you know. The child probably might have got hurt. Did they take care of it? I hope so. This child will be traumatized for the rest of its life, because of just small incidences like this. The third incident is another woman. It's always women, and this is the thing that really that drives me, to the wall. It's always the women that suffer under all these lack of, of laws to protect them. It's the women that end up suffering. The third woman, her story came up in the media before she actually got arrested. She was married, not legally married, but she was cohabiting with a gentleman who is apparently a resident district commissioner. That's an RDC in Uganda. So when you hear of someone being an RDC, you imagine they are educated, they are well established, and they are respectable. But no. What did this man do? From the reports that were, that have been going around, she lost her husband. She is a widow. And then when she lost her husband, she was trying to sell her piece of land to, in order to get money to look after her children that her husband had left behind. So what happens? She goes to the resident district commissioner to ask for help and advice. What did he do? He ended up convincing her to become his partner. So they began cohabiting together. They had more children. But the man neglected all his duties. He neglected the children. He neglected his responsibilities, And when the woman tried to speak up and to call him out on it and tell him, he needs to look after them, he needs to look after the children and all that, he became cross with her and ended up beating her. So she has been going through domestic violence for a long time, until the day when she decided, you know what, enough is enough. She picked up her bags and left with the children and went to report at the police station. Did they help her? No. And what did the man do, the RDC? He sold the piece of land for 12 million shillings. And he used the money. He never gave her the money. And yet that was her piece of land. And that's the money she wanted to use to help her children. So he's abusing her domestically. And he's appropriating goods or property that doesn't belong to him, which means it's theft. He's stealing from her as well. So anyway, there she is now, she has nowhere to go. She has nowhere to, no job, no income. her kids cannot, she can afford to send the kids to school, so they're at home. They're not going to school. The person that owes her money is her abuser. She's reported the matter to the police. Nothing has been done. So what does she decide to do? She decides she got capital of 20,000 Ugandan shillings. That's about I'll say about £4.50. You can imagine what does £4.50 do? It doesn't. It can't even buy you a large McDonald's meal, you know. Because if you're buying a large McDonald's meal, you're looking at about over £6 or £7, really, you know. So anyway, she got the capital of £4.50. You know, that's 20,000 Ugandan shillings. Went over in town, got herself a few. She decided to go into lingerie, you know. So she got herself a few things here and there, you know, to try and start up, you know, a little business and try and sell and get money to feed her children, and probably with time, you know, be able to send them to school as well. So in the process of doing that, she got her goods. In the process of, you know, trying to hawk them in town, they spotted her and she got arrested. So after she got arrested, remember her capital was £20, not £20, 20,000 Ugandan shillings. That's £4.50. Now KCCA is asking her to pay a fine of 200,000 Ugandan shillings. That's not even triple. It's, I don't know what I should say. You know, it's not even triple the amount of her capital. It's triple times, you know. So if she can't afford 200,000 to use as capital, you know, she's barely even sold anything. And they're asking for that money from her. What is she meant to do? So anyway, what did she do? As a woman, all she's thinking about and worrying about now that she's being arrested are her children. Because she has nobody she's left them with. They're on their own. These are young children. They're not going to school. Now their mother has been arrested. She's crying. She has no help whatsoever, you know. So she got arrested. And she wasn't just taken to a local police station. No. She was transferred and taken straight to the biggest prison. That's Luzira prison. Remember, she failed to pay the 200,000 Ugandan shillings. So the thing with Uganda, I don't know if it's in Africa generally, but with Uganda, the poor people suffer the most, which is so unfair. So unfair. And many times the people that the law does not favor are women. And many times, you know, when they are sent over to big prisons like that, they'll be forgotten. If nobody comes to their rescue, they'll never have any legal representation. They'll not have anybody to stand in, you know, as, you know, to stand in as surety for them or pay, you know, bond for them. It's unfair. The irony of it is the person that heads KCCA is a woman. Did she ever sit down to try and investigate all these stories that were aired on the media? Did she ever have any compassion for her fellow women, you know, and think about, you know, and put herself in their shoes to have any empathy and feel sorry for them, especially those with the children. Look at the dead woman. What's happening to her kids, if at all she had any? It's very sad, you know, to see that, a lot of the things that are happening in my country are actually being spearheaded by women. It's very shameful. I'm very ashamed of it and very disappointed, disgusted. If we cannot protect our own, if we cannot have compassion and empathy for our own, then where are we heading to? I think things need to change. I applaud the people that went and rescued that woman, from the Nigeria prison. They collectively got some money and went and bailed her out. And they gave her capital as well to, set up a small business that will be away from the town where she won't be arrested. And at least she'll be able to take care of her children. Has the RDC man ever been brought to books? No. When we say no one is above the law, people like that are getting away. They're abusing women. They're abusing children. They're abusing, the system. And no one ever brings them to book. The KCCA workers and the way they treated that woman and her children and her child, have they ever been investigated? Have they ever been arrested and made made accountable for the way they harassed the woman and the child? No. People need to change the way they're doing things. They need to remember that nobody is above the law. And it needs to be put in practice. When they say no one is above the law, it needs to be put in practice. And people should always remember the people's human rights and respect it. Treat everyone the way you would want them to treat you. If no one has murdered you or murdered your family or anybody, if no one has stolen from you, yes, you may find them doing the wrong thing that's contrary to what the rules and regulations are saying. But handle them with respect and handle them with some kind of, compassion. I'll end by saying, Abana-Uganda, abanange, tweddeko, and we start doing things in a different way. I just pray and hope that things change. I hope that this sensitization of the rule of law will, empower people and will be able to actually work out and, do exactly what it's supposed to do. The human rights tracker, I hope it will bring people to book human rights abusers. And people need to always remember to respect every person's human rights. For God and my country, I'm out of here.